Hello, and welcome to another episode of Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki. In this week's episode, we take a visit to Florida. We get Florida man stories. Just a few, just enough to drive you crazy. We also have a goldfish getting a haircut, and we look at some cult action. All that and more in this week's Other Items of Interest. Hello, and welcome to the podcast they call Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki, and this week we have a pretty good show for you. Pretty good. Wanted to do a couple of updates to stories from last week, right at the top of the show, and then even once we get into the show, there'll be another update. But that fits into the whole scheme of things. You don't have to worry about it. Did a story last week about a 6-year-old girl who was arrested for having a tantrum at school. She wasn't just arrested like as, a warning. She was arrested, fingerprinted, had a mugshot taken, whole 9 yards. Turns out that cop also arrested another 6-year-old that day. I don't know what his deal is getting 6-year-olds off the street. Maybe we should thank him, but I doubt it. I said during the last week's podcast that I thought he had been demoted, and he very well may have been. I didn't read any article on that, but even better, that officer has been fired. I think the chief said there was not much else he could do about it, especially with this officer. It was best just to let him go. And I think that was for the best. You can't really go around arresting 5 and 6-year-olds. That's just nonsense. They don't know any better. Adults don't know any better either, but they've had time to learn. So, the other story was they got a pretty good response, especially on Twitter with the picture. I got a picture from the New York Post of the sourdough cocktail. If you didn't listen to last week's episode and you missed the episode from months ago, which is most likely, sourdough cocktail is a mummified toe dropped in a shot glass. Pour your shot on top of it, drink your shot down, and the toe has to touch your lips. That's the sourdough cocktail from the Yukon Hotel. A lot of people seem to like that. It's shocking, I guess, to most people. A little disgusting. Anyway, got a couple of likes from the Yukon Hotel and sourdough cocktail Twitter, which was exciting for me. I've never interacted with somebody I've done a story on the show, so it was a little special, especially it being the sourdough cocktail. Check them out on Twitter. I'm sure they have a website. There's pictures everywhere. It's fun. Guess we're going to keep it short for this introduction, this monologue, if you will. You can check out the show at www.otheritemsofinterest.com. You can email us with whatever you'd like to say at otheritemsofinterestpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram at otheritemspod and Twitter at otheritems. So, without further ado, let's get on with the show, shall we? Yes, we shall. So what we're starting out with today is an update from last week. I could have covered this in the intro there like the other two, but we kind of have a little kick going at the beginning of the show of Florida man stories, and Florida woman, as it may be. The couple in this article are from Florida. They were traveling through Louisiana. Headline reads, "Truck stop Camel prescribed antibiotics after woman bites it." from miamiherald.com. Basically, the basic story, I'm sure they'll cover it in the article, but a woman went into an enclosed camel cage. They had a camel at this truck stop, at which they stopped. The camel sat on her. She bit the camel in the testicles and was able to escape. That was the story from last week. More or less. I left some details out, but they're not that important. Well, maybe a little important. Let's just get to the article, shall we? Yes. A veterinarian has prescribed antibiotics to a camel owned by a Louisiana truck stop petting zoo after a woman bit the 600-pound animal to free herself from under its weight. And I don't know why, but this article refuses to mention that she bit the camel in the testicles. I don't know if they're trying to keep it highbrow or what. Iberville Parish Sheriff's Office documents obtained by the Advocate on Monday accused Florida couple, Gloria and Edmund Lancaster, of throwing treats for their unleashed dog into Casper the camel's enclosure at Tiger Truck Stop. The couple told deputies the camel attacked the dog, but the sheriff's office said the couple had provoked the animal before it sat on Gloria Lancaster. She crawled under barbed wire to retrieve her pet. Gloria Lancaster told officers she had to bite the camel to free herself. Truck stop manager Pamela Bossier said a veterinarian prescribed Casper antibiotics as a precaution. Shouldn't Gloria Lancaster, the woman who bit the camel, shouldn't she get some medical attention? Like some kind of weird hoof fungus? Do camels have hoofs? I don't even know. I don't know much about camels. No camel expert here. So that's the update. The Casper, the camel, is getting antibiotics because this woman bit it in the testicles. And that's it. Bitten in the testicles. And here's another Florida woman story from PalmBeachPost.com. Florida woman charged with theft after teeth found in car. And there's a mugshot. She does look toothless. There we go. A toothless Florida woman faces 2 charges of auto theft after her dentures were found inside a Kia. Problem? Police say the Kia wasn't hers. Lindsay Jean Stanley McShane, 31, of Lady Lake, was arrested Friday after reports of a person trying to enter homes, the Leesburg Daily Commercial reported. Deputies said they found Stanley McShane trying to get into a pickup truck and also saw the Kia nearby with the inside light on and door open. Police also said the woman seemed to be on drugs and was on the ground looking for her teeth and shoes. Those are 2 things you don't want to lose, your teeth and your shoes. That sounds terrible. According to the arrest report, they had planned to take her to a mental health facility before they spotted both items inside the Kia. Police said Stanley McShane told them she had been a passenger in the car, which police said had been stolen. Stanley McShane remains in the Lake County Jail on $10,000 bond. You really have to reevaluate things when you start losing your teeth. Here's an oopsie. Florida man's murder plot against wife backfires after he's left paralyzed. From FoxNews.com. And I know I always complain about using FoxNews.com, but the comments weren't too bad on this one. They were all jokes or comments made at the expense of the man in the article. Nothing political whatsoever. There's no way you could turn this political. Virginia judge on Wednesday denied bond to a Florida man whose alleged plot to murder his wife went awry earlier this month when he was shot and paralyzed. Henry Frank Herbig, 65, appeared in court via video conference from his jail hospital bed. He is charged with aggravated malicious wounding and breaking and entering with intent to commit a felony. Prosecutors said Herbig, 65, broke into the Virginia Beach home of his estranged wife on September 8th and assaulted her and her daughter with a wrench. He was shot in the spine by his stepdaughter during the attack and left paralyzed. Authorities determined she acted in self-defense and did not press charges. Investigators said they found a journal in Herbig's car that noted his plans to commit the murder. It said he used several cars to drive from Florida to Virginia and bought gas cans so he wouldn't have to stop. Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because you're still going to have to stop to fill up. So might as well be at a gas station. You're smelling gas fumes your whole ride up to Virginia. He also carried multiple cell phones, disguises, garbage bags, zip ties, duct tape, and weapons including a wooden baton, the wrench, and a firearm. Prosecutors said Herbig is wealthy and is a flight risk because of his connections to several pilots and homes, one of which is near the Canadian border. Although he can't walk, they said he still poses a danger. His defense attorney argued Herbig needs to be released so he can receive adequate health care at another facility. And that's the story of Henry Frank Herbig. Strange one. This one is a strange one regarding the possible cause of death. From Jacksonville.com, unidentified woman found dead inside burning portable toilet in St. Augustine. St. Johns County firefighters discovered the body of an unidentified woman inside a burning porta-potty early Saturday at St. Augustine home under construction. The victim was too badly burned for immediate identification. However, St. Johns County Sheriff's Office detectives believe the victim was a white woman. Detectives are asking the public for help identifying her and determining the circumstances of her death, said Chuck Mulligan, a Sheriff's Office spokesperson. Okay. At this time, we have not received a missing persons report that may coincide with the incident, Mulligan said. We are asking anyone who may have a family member or friend who has not been heard from and may be missing to contact the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office and ask for the Major Crimes Unit, Mulligan said. Mulligan also said the case remains an undetermined death investigation pending autopsy findings and/or additional background information. Because of the condition of the body, the victim's age, and how she died wasn't immediately known, he said. Mulligan said the body was taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy and potential identification. The autopsy is expected to be performed Monday. St. Johns County Fire Rescue first responders discovered the body about 7:30 a.m. when called to the portable toilet on fire in the 500 block of Horseshoe Road North in the area of Florida 16 and US 1, not far from St. Augustine High School. The portable toilet was at a home that had been under construction for several months. There were several possible scenarios for how the death happened. Detectives will explore all possibilities. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. A person could have gone in there and the methane gas could have ignited somehow. It might have been suicide or something more nefarious. We just don't know at this juncture, Mulligan said. It also is possible the victim died of a medical issue while smoking and the lit cigarette sparked the fire, or it might have been drug-related, he noted. In my 32 years of law enforcement, I've never seen one of these before, Mulligan said. Mulligan said Sheriff's Office detectives, along with State Fire Marshal's Office investigators and the Medical Examiner's Office, are investigating the death. The investigation is preliminary. Having a hard time with this one at this point. The State Fire Marshal will research the cause of the fire and if any accelerants were used and the like, Mulligan said. The medical examiner will tell us what the cause of death was and if there was any indicators if the body had trauma to it prior to the fire. And anyone with information can call the Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Unit at 904 number. I'm not going to give out their number on this. I don't know what kind of wackos listen to this show. Start calling the Major Crimes Unit. But that's interesting. She could have gone into the porta potty with a cigarette and exploded herself, basically. Just caught fire. I've never heard of such a thing happening. That seems like one of those things for Mythbusters, that old show, to test out. Can that really happen? Maybe they have done that. I don't know. Be interesting to know either way. I'd have to say this is one of my favorite Florida man stories. From abc13.com, Florida man wrecks liquor shop, blames caterpillar. A Florida man arrested for destroying a liquor store under construction told police he was Alice in Wonderland and that a hookah-smoking caterpillar ordered him to attack the site. Fair enough. Crestview police said in a post on Facebook that Matthew Horace Jones is accused of breaking into a fenced-in area and using a forklift to cause more than $100,000 in damages. I've been reading that wrong the whole time. That's a lot, $100,000 in damage. He faces grand theft felony and other charges. Witnesses called 911 and police went to the site. The police report says Jones aimed the forklift toward officers who stopped him at gunpoint. Police quoted Jones as identifying himself as Alice in Wonderland, blaming the attack on a hookah-smoking caterpillar, and saying that he had a problem with building a place to sell alcohol. Everything seems above board there. And now that we're done with the Florida crazy, we can get to the regular crazy. Woman accused of serving co-workers meth-laced bean dip. I don't like bean dip. The only thing worse I can think of is meth-laced bean dip. This comes to us from koin.com. An Albany woman is facing charges after she allegedly mixed meth into bean dip eaten by a coworker. That's awful. The Marion County Sheriff's Office said 38-year-old Cassandra Medina Hernandez was working at the deli at Jefferson Thriftway on Old Pacific Highway in Jefferson on September 9th when she allegedly put meth into a serving of bean dip. Another co-worker went to the deli to get some food for her lunch break, according to probable cause documents. She said Medina Hernandez let her try the dip she was making. The victim liked it so much that she took some home to eat during break. She told investigators she thought a bite of the dip tasted funny, but she didn't think much of it. That's the flavor of meth. She started to feel sick and unsteady when she went back to work a short while later. She was taken to a hospital where tests suggested she had meth in her system. During the investigation, another Thriftway employee told deputies Medina Hernandez admitted to putting meth in the bean dip. Deputies believe at least one other employee ate the dip from the same dish suspected of being contaminated. Investigators don't think any customers were exposed to the dip. Shoppers at the Thriftway were shocked to hear about the allegations. I think it's really unusual. I really do. I've never heard of such a thing, shopper Georgia Waterbury told KOIN 6 News. The store's owners, meanwhile, said Medina Hernandez has been a reliable employee since she started working there in July. They said Medina Hernandez denies the accusations. She's been suspended pending the investigation. Medina Hernandez was arrested Wednesday at the Lynn County Parole and Probation Office in Albany. She made her first court appearance on Thursday. She's facing charges of unlawful delivery of methamphetamine, recklessly endangering another person, and causing another person to ingest a controlled substance. Her bail is set at $500,000. That's some hefty cabbage right there. I like the following article just for the headline itself. Man breaks into home, makes 2 mayonnaise sandwiches. From WYMT.com. Officials from the Laurel County Sheriff's Department said a house was broken into early Saturday morning off Barberville Road, about 2 miles south of London. Officials said the owner of the home woke up to noises coming from his kitchen and found a man making 2 mayonnaise sandwiches. That's really gross to me because I fucking hate mayonnaise. I'm sorry to curse so early in the show. I hate mayonnaise sandwiches. I hate mayonnaise sandwiches. I hate mayonnaise. So I'm going to hate mayonnaise sandwiches, of course. It's just gross. I know I've railed against mayonnaise before on the show. I'll do it again. I'm warning you. Let's get back to the article. The owner did not know the man, but described him as being about 6 feet tall and 220 pounds. I guess if I find a guy that big in my kitchen making mayonnaise sandwiches, I let him. I don't know how well shape he can be in, but I mean, he's eating mayonnaise sandwiches, you know. Police said the suspect told the homeowner if he left the house, would the homeowner clean up the mess. The suspect then left the home before police arrived, leaving behind a coffee mug, loose change, and his wallet with an ID. Good going. Very nice. Deputy Gilbert Asiardo says that even though the suspect is not in custody, police do not believe the public is in any danger. Unless you have mayonnaise in the house and bread. All kinds of things could have happened because most homeowners anymore in the times that we live in, they're armed and they have weapons in their house. And if you don't know somebody and somebody broke in on you, who knows what's going to go through your mind at that time, said Asiardo. That's one hell of a quote. Just one long run-on sentence. Sounds like a little kid gave that quote. Police said they are going to use information from the items found to locate this suspect and obtain an arrest warrant. That would be a good idea. His wallet and ID. You might want to use that stuff to find your guy. Good luck. Godspeed. From ABC11.com, woman unknowingly rescues bobcat, thinking it was a harmless kitten. Those are two very different things, a bobcat and a harmless little kitten. From Chattanooga, Tennessee, a Tennessee woman's good deed was not what it seemed, at least initially. She thought she rescued a cute, cuddly kitten. It turned out to be a bobcat darting across a busy street. The animal climbed all over Jill Hicks after it got in her car with her. I pulled over on the side of the road, got out, got it. It did run a little bit, but not fast, not far, Hicks said. I crouched down, I picked it up, I put it in the car with me. It climbed all over me. Adorable. Then it clawed out my eyes. She didn't say that. After talking with neighbors, she realized she had actually rescued a bobcat. That changed her plans for what to do with the little guy. I was going to go home from dinner and give her a bath, put her in the bed with me, Hicks said. And when we decided she was a bobcat, no, you didn't decide she was a bobcat. She is a bobcat. I was like, I probably better not do all of that. No, don't take a bobcat with you to bed. Bad idea. Hicks took her to a wildlife rescue where she was named Arwen. The Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency says bobcats can be found all around the state. And that's that. Don't take a bobcat to bed with you. If there's one bit of advice I can give you today on this podcast, is don't do it. Don't take a bobcat to bed with you. Thank you. You just might want to check out the show notes at www.otheritemsofinterest.com for this next story. There are some pictures, and it's actually kind of educational. From walesonline.co.uk, Goldfish gets emergency haircut after his head became so heavy it turned him upside down. And right up top is the fish swimming upside down. It's not dead. It's very much alive. But some goldfish have a kind of ornamental... The article will get into this, okay? I'll just explain real quick. Goldfish gets ornamental kind of... well, they call it a hood. But like hair on top of their heads. It's kind of like little bulbous looking fish bits. I don't know what to call it. I should just really let the article explain. Let's do that. Goldfish was given an emergency haircut by vets after his head became so heavy it caused him to swim upside down. 2-year-old Bubble from Cardiff was taken to the vets by his concerned owners after his brain-like growth, a thick excess of skin known as a wen or a hood, started getting out of control. The benign mass, a characteristic of the Oranda species of goldfish, is meant to help attract a mate and is the result of selective breeding back in its homeland of China. Continuing to grow until the fish is about 2 years old, the hood can sometimes require trimming should its size start encroaching on the fish's eyes, which can even cause it to go blind in some cases. And there they are. I don't know what they're doing in this picture. I think they're monitoring the fish's heart for this little surgery. You should really check out the pictures. They're worth it. It's effectively a form of a genetic mutation, and sometimes it just gets too big, says Sophie Jenkins, 35, of Exotic Pet Specialist Origin Vets. In Bubble's case, it got to such an extent that it was causing him to swim sideways and also capsize altogether. He was still managing to eat and be very active, but if you don't deal with these things in time, they only get worse. There have been instances where the hood will grow completely over the fish's eyes until it can't see the food in order to eat. See, I had my mouse right over the word grow, right over the R, and it made it look like an L. That's why I said glow completely. It doesn't glow at all. It grows. Okay. Sorry for that major mistake. Very unprofessional. Anyway, so by adding an anesthetic powder into a bucket of water, Bubble was put under and his hood seen to with a pair of sharp scissors. All the while, his tiny heart was being monitored by specialist equipment. And there's a picture of them cutting off the hood. It looks like roe that you get in sushi. I don't think I want to be eating that now. We were careful to keep him wet and applied a pain-killing agent to his gills, although he wouldn't have felt anything as the hood itself is like a callus. It doesn't have any nerve endings. Knocking him out has just helped eliminate the chances of him getting stressed. The procedure lasted about 8 minutes, and once newly shorn, Bubble had lost about 5% of his body weight, dropping from 145 grams to 127 grams. It's a hefty fish. By that evening, he was back home swimming around as normal, adds Sophie, who at the other end of the scale also tends to a lot of zoo animals such as rhinos and giraffe. Well, good to know. He's a much better little mover now, she said. So there you go. Fish got a haircut, and now you know about it. That's the news. Have you ever gotten so drunk you turned yourself into the police? Well, from KCRA.com, man drank 7 beers before turning himself in, but there was no warrant for his arrest. Whoops. A Texas man ended up in jail even though there was no warrant for his arrest. According to KTVT, Billy Bob Hall, Billy Bob, thought there was a warrant out for his arrest for a parole violation. He went to the local jail to turn himself in. But before turning himself in, Hall drank 7 Budweiser beers. The deputy speaking with the 59-year-old detected the strong smell of the beer. KTVT reports Hall told police he had to drink to build up the courage to turn himself in. Authorities said Hall did not have a warrant out for his arrest, but police found him to be intoxicated to the level where he was in danger to himself or others. Hall was arrested for public intoxication. It's like a really lame Twilight Zone episode. Could you imagine being up for 3 weeks? what kind of trouble you might get into. Wonder no more, because here's the story just about that. From Q13Fox.com. I overshot. Neighbor who shot troopers home with slingshot said he'd been up for 3 weeks. Tacoma, Washington. The man who charged with shooting marbles and rocks into his neighbor's home and camper told Tacoma police officers he'd been awake for 3 weeks and took a fighting stance against his cat when it rubbed against his leg. What? According to court documents, the story only gets wilder. Police responded about 4:30 a.m. Wednesday, September 27th, to a Washington State Patrol trooper's home in East Tacoma. The trooper and his wife were inside their home when they heard a loud popping noise. The trooper went to the back of the house and found multiple holes in the home's rear windows. He initially thought they were bullet holes, but then found marbles, bolts, and rocks near the broken windows. The back door also had holes, and 2 windows in the couple's camper had been shattered. Police say there was more than $5,500 worth of damage. One of the officers on scene noticed a spotlight shining in the back of the trooper's home, then noticed a neighbor walking out of the house where the spotlight was shining. When the officer asked if the man had heard any commotion, he said, "I haven't slept in 3 weeks." Not quite the type of answer you want to give to a cop. The officer walked over to talk to the man more through his fence, then noticed that the man was only wearing sweatpants. His face, arms, and torso were covered in gold glitter. Everything seems to be normal here. When the man's cat walked over and rubbed against his leg, he moved into a fighting stance towards the cat. "You know about that 5G, right?" he asked the officer. "You can hear it." "I know you can. You guys get the 5G interference too." The officer asked the man if he noticed any damage to his property, to which he replied, "I do target practice." The man agreed to let police into his house, where they found there was no furniture, and some of the windows and appliances had been spray painted black. When officers asked about a severed chicken foot lying on a piece of plywood, he said, "Trying the voodoo." He said the rest of the chicken was on the roof of his house. He showed officers where he did his target practice, eventually admitting that he probably overshot when he hit his neighbor's home. He also told police when asked that he had firearms in the house. He surrendered 3 guns to police. The 48-year-old man was charged with first-degree malicious mischief and harassment. He's being held without bail pending a competency hearing. I think that's a good idea, a competency hearing. Just maybe. That guy's living the life, isn't he? Gold glitter, a little bit of voodoo, spray painting everything black inside the house. That's life. Here's a story about an allegedly murderous potential dwarf. It'll make sense as I read the article. From telegraph.co.uk, woman claims adopted girl she abandoned was really an adult dwarf who wanted to kill her family. Yeah, I know, it sounds like the plot to The Orphan, and that's even mentioned in the article, so it's a strange story, though. A U.S. woman accused of abandoning her daughter has claimed the girl she adopted in 2010 was in fact an adult suffering from dwarfism who tried to kill the family. Christine Barnett and ex-husband Michael Barnett were charged with neglect after leaving Ukraine-born Natalie Grace in an apartment shortly before the family moved to Canada in 2013. The family paid Natalie's rent after they left the United States, but otherwise broke off contact, Michael Barnett reportedly told police. Natalie is 3 feet tall and has trouble walking. In a defense echoing the 2009 horror film The Orphan, Miss Barnett, 45, says Natalie was 22 years old when they left her behind, not 9, as court documents claim. According to a letter from the family doctor, which Miss Barnett provided to a local TV station, Natalie's date of birth at the time of adoption was clearly inaccurate. The letter, which Indiana University Health have not confirmed as a genuine, states that she had adult teeth and had begun menstruating. It also states that the girl had made a career of perpetuating her age facade and was diagnosed with sociopathic personality disorder. The Barnetts had the girl's age legally changed from 8 to 22 in 2012, making her legal date of birth September 4th, 1989. Miss Barnett has told Daily Mail TV that she had attempted to harm other members of the family while she was under their care. She was hiding knives in our couches. She was talking about how she was going to kill family members. She put chemicals in the coffee, Miss Barnett said. She was jumping out of moving cars. She was smearing blood on mirrors. She was doing things you could never imagine a little child doing. She would stand over people in their sleep. Ooh, I don't like that one. She would be standing in the middle of the room and say, "I'm waiting for the right time." Natalie was in and out of mental health facilities, but was left in an apartment in Lafayette, Indiana in 2013 when the Barnetts moved to Canada to support their son Jacob in further education. The family are already known to the world through Jacob, a child prodigy who was the subject of a 2012 episode of CBS 60 Minutes. At the age of 12, Jacob was taking university math classes and is currently pursuing a PhD in quantum gravity at the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics. It is not clear what happened to Natalie since she was left in Lafayette, although court documents obtained by local media suggest that she was evicted from the apartment in 2014. Mr. Barnett is due to appear in court later this month. That's a weird story. I'd like to know a lot of things about this story, a lot of questions unanswered. What's a trip to Disneyland without the LSD? Man who took LSD at Disneyland Paris found naked, confused. From Canoe.com. The Swiss tourist had planned the trip of a lifetime, taking LSD while on vacation at Disneyland Paris. What could possibly go wrong? Plenty, as the 32-year-old engineer discovered this past weekend. He wound up in jail on narcotics charges after disappearing into a pond and launching a 130-person search with helicopters and dogs, only to turn up hours later naked and confused on a quiet residential street about a mile away. The misadventure began Friday evening when the man's 30-year-old girlfriend slipped him the hallucinogenic drug. According to Le Parisien, almost immediately he fell into the man-made lake in Adventureland near Captain Hook's pirate ship and the menacing grimace of Skull Rock from Peter Pan. Is it Skull Rock or Skull Island? I don't know. When he didn't resurface, his girlfriend grew nervous. At around 8:30 p.m. Friday, the park began to close up for the night, and she alerted staff that he was still missing. The French newspaper didn't indicate whether the woman had also taken LSD, but did note that she did not seem to be in possession of all her means. And it says in parentheses here, the couple have not been named in French media accounts in accordance with European privacy laws. Privacy laws, that's interesting. We call it freedom of the press here, baby. USA. Excuse me. And that wasn't a real rant, lest anybody think so. For hours, worried Disneyland employees combed the park, but there was no sign of the Swiss engineer. He hadn't climbed onto the pirate ship or hopped onto the Indiana Jones and Temple of Peril ride or hauled himself onto Pirates Beach. The search party came to include 10 divers, 10 policemen, 30 firefighters, and 80 Disneyland Paris employees. Le Parisien reported. By then, it had grown dark, making it harder for them to peer into the lagoon circling Adventureland, and dogs and a police helicopter with a thermal camera were brought in for backup. Early the next morning, as the search continued, a 44-year-old man driving home from work came across an odd sight in the town of Chessy, a little more than a mile from Disneyland Paris. I came face to face with a naked man. The driver, who asked only to be identified as Benoit, told Le Parisien. He was walking in the middle of the road. He did not have a centimeter of clothes on him, and he was barefoot. The man was calmly making his way down Chemin de Fosse Rouge. I'm terrible at French. I'm terrible at English, but I'm really terrible at French. It's a tranquil, tree-lined street where cottages and large villas sit behind hedges and imposing gates. I stopped, got out of the car, and went to meet him, Benoit told the paper. I wanted to know what a naked man was doing 300 meters from my home. The nude man, who by then was completely dry, had scratches all over his arms and legs. He didn't remember anything, Benoit said. Somewhat problematically, he also didn't speak French. Eventually, the two realized they could communicate in English, and the mysterious naked man explained that he had taken LSD as part of a bet that he made with friends, and that his girlfriend was probably worried. Benoit offered to call her, but the man was also unable to remember the number. With his initial apprehension dissipating, Benoit realized that the man was harmless and also horribly lost. He put the stranger in his car and ran inside his house to get a pair of rugby shorts and a t-shirt so that he could cover himself up, he told Le Parisien. Then he dropped his baffled passenger off at the park's edge, having somehow gathered that the man's strange journey had begun at Disneyland Paris. Rescuers found the man there at around 1:15 a.m., and he and his girlfriend were arrested for narcotics use, according to Le Parisien, and taken to the police station in Chessy. But authorities evidently felt the couple had been through enough, because they were released Saturday afternoon after spending less than a day in jail. Le Parisien reported that both received, I don't know how to pronounce this, rappel à la loi for drug use, which roughly translates to reminder of the law. The citation, which doesn't get added to a person's official criminal record, is typically handed out when a prosecutor chooses not to press charges. Disneyland Paris, likewise, was unfazed by the incident. Park officials told Le Parisien that the hours-long search didn't disrupt their regular operations or a 5K race that took place the same evening. The visitors did not even realize that there was a problem, a source told the paper. It remains unclear how the man resurfaced from the Adventureland lake and left the park without his girlfriend noticing, what happened to all his clothes, and where he went for several hours while rescuers were frantically searching for him. But initial news reports about the disappearance at least solved one mystery for Benoit, who had been wondering about the chain of events that led a severely confused naked man to materialize in front of his car. It was my wife who, seeing the article, explained to me what had happened, he told La Parisienne. That guy might have had a blast, and he'll never know it. From mirror.co.uk, sacrificial cult headed by living Buddha who banned followers from washing. And there are plenty of pictures to look at. Check the show notes at www.otheritemsofinterest.com. It's kind of a disturbing story, but you like that kind of thing, don't you? Don't you? Because I think you do. This is the moment police raided a sacrificial cult headed by a living Buddha who banned people from speaking or washing without permission. Police burst into the compound and rescued 19 people after one follower of the Zhanghu Rizing Yishang, otherwise known as China Daily Virtue, was allegedly killed in a Sikh ritual. Cult leader Lin Xin Yu, 61, was among 5 people arrested at the remote mountain monastery in Nantao, Taiwan, which had been sealed shut by a large red metal gate and surrounded by a chain-link fence. The cult has around 100 members ranging from 2 to 80 across either side of the Taiwan Strait. Taiwan's Criminal Investigation Bureau, CIB, said followers were not allowed mobile phones and were beaten for speaking out of turn and attempting to run away. Investigators with the CIB's 5th Investigative Unit seized cult propaganda, various rods, plastic and wooden sticks, as well as metal pipes wrapped in cloth used to beat followers in exorcisms or so-called soul-purifying ceremonies. The unit's lead investigator, Lai Yingmen, said the beatings were carried out or authorized by the ringleader herself, who was referred to as the Holy Mother, or Living Buddha. The raid on the compound came during a months-long investigation into the groups established by Lin in 2008 as a fusion of Eastern and Western religious teachings. Authorities became involved in March after family members of 20-year-old follower Miss Fang from Taiwan's western city of Taichung reported that she had been beaten to death during a visit to mainland China with the matriarch. Lin allegedly ordered Miss Fang to be flogged during a purification ceremony in Nanning, capital of China's southern Gongzhou region. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that one right, where she had hoped to open a new compound. And there is a picture of all the items used to flog and beat cult members with. Sticks, rods, what looks like rope bound into knots, then metal pipes. And there's a big picture of a big bruise. Skip that one. She then fled back to Taiwan to avoid arrest by local authorities. CIB, which is the bureau under the National Police Agency, said on September 25th. According to reports, the religious cult's alleged purpose is to inspire good virtues and promote physical and spiritual health. But those who joined found themselves unable to leave, often suffering violent and brutal beatings when they attempted to escape. All 19 followers rescued from the compound had been beaten for the purposes of exorcism or for failing to follow the cult's rules. Reasons for being flogged, I just love that word. The action, not so much. Reasons for being flogged included using the Holy Mother's name in vain, speaking without raising one's hand, disrespecting Buddhist teachings, and even asking for a second helping of food. Jeez. CIB investigator Lai said, according to the followers, the cult leader claimed they had been possessed by evil beings which needed to be driven out through these exorcism beatings. No religion treats its followers this way. The Taichung District Court has ordered Lin to be remanded in custody and held incommunicado as investigations continue. So, there's yet another reason to never, ever join a cult. Well, that's the end of the show. Sorry to see you go, but we'll see each other again next week, I suppose. You can check out the website at www.otheritemsofinterest.com. You can email us. Please send us an email. I haven't gotten one in a while. It's lonely. otheritemsofinterestpod@gmail.com. You can see us on Twitter at otheriitems and on Instagram at otheritemspod. And that'll be it for this week, I guess. Hope you've learned something. Hope it's been fun. Learn a little bit more about Florida this week. We've missed Florida. We haven't done Florida stories in a while. So it was nice to have all those characters back. they make me wonder about humanity. But I guess it's all in good fun. Then we had a bunch of other crazy people, right? They were all good people with, good intentions, I guess. And then we had the crazy of the crazy, the cult, that we discovered. And again, don't join a cult. It's just not worth your time. In fact, cue the music. Welcome to the end of the show. You've made it this far. I congratulate you. There's no prize, there's no winning, there's no nothing. Just a howdy do and a goodbye from old Jack Zablocki. You have a good week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.